Hi, hi.
May I ask your opinion about something real quick?
What?
I don't have a real mole right there, but I think I'm going to get a tattoo there. Everybody loves it. It's not a real. God didn't. I didn't give me a mole, but it's a tiny little mole right there. Everybody loves it. So I think I'm going to splurge. I never do anything for myself like that, but I think I'm going to do that for my sweetheart.
No tattoos.
Uh,
Jewish,
it's not
Jewish
a tattoo,
law.
like
Wait,
a makeup type thing, not a tattoo.
wait. Jewish law is lenient about uh, putting holes in for rings and stuff like that,
Oh, I don't want that. No.
but is very unhappy with tattoos. Jewish
Oh,
is
oh, really? That's why I mentioned it because the makeup is a makeup. I do a pencil. I'll use a pencil then. I'll just use a pencil. When John kisses me, he'll know it's not real.
okay. Thank you. Good Shabbos, everybody. Hi.
Yes,
Good to see us gathering.
everybody.
Let's see. We'll give it another minute.
Okay. How's Risa?
Fine. Uh,
Okay.
let's see. Oh, we're doing very well. The clan is gathering.
God
Those
is so good.
those of
God is
us
so
who
good.
were at services last night had the privilege of hearing. I don't ever want to do regular evaluations on Saturday morning, but the sermon last night that Joel delivered was superb. I just thought I'd say that. I will not be saying that every week. And if I don't say it, it doesn't mean I didn't like it. But this is not a sermon review session. On the other hand, uh, last night was good. Was good. Um, Shabbat shalom, everybody. Baruch atah
Adonai,
Adonai
Eloheinu,
Eloheinu
melech haolam, asher kiddushanu mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Yeah, Torah.
Okay, let me just see Rebecca, Donna, Merle, Diane, hi, Barbara, you're over on the far right this morning. That's okay. David Trainer, Shabbat Shalom, David, hi. Cindy, good Shabbos, good morning. Where's the cat? Uh, oh, okay. I was a little worried. Okay. Steve, hi, good morning, Steve, good Shabbos, Roy. Roy Logan, hi. Natalie, I'm not going to ask you where Don is. Natalie, it's good to see you. Brad, hi, Brad. How are you? You're feeling good? That's terrific. Eric, are you in New York now?
New York, going to Florida in 2 weeks. Hooray. It was cold, man. I was used to shorts, and then all of a sudden I had to put long pants. Irritating to say the least. Thank you very much. Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper. Doris, Shabbat Shalom. Yeah, right. It's a Jewish thing. Um, okay, and I see Joseph Furling. Good morning, Shabbat Shalom, Joseph. Uh, Barbara Levin uh, is here representing the Midwest of the United States. Maya Levin. Hi, Maya. Shabbat Shalom, babe. Good to see you. Mara and Harver. Hi. Hi, you. Ray is here. Kevin is here. Karen, Tamara, Shabbat Shalom. What else do we have here? Oh, Zach's.
Aw.
Okay. Okay. It is so good to be together. Hine matovu manaim
Shevet Zakim B'Mecha,
shevet achim gam yachad.
Mahine Mata.
No, we're not singing. Well,
I can't help it.
if we are going to sing, I'm going to have to sign off because people will shoot me. So I'm not
Oh,
going to do that. Important announcements for calendar. Important announcements. Um, Sunday, November 5th, the program with me and with Leah has been postponed.
mm,
Sunday, November 5th, postponed. I though this is being recorded, I have to say, I'm really not quite sure why. I know that there is a primary and necessary focus in programming on what's going on in the Middle East. I respect and support that, period, end of thing. There are lots of programs going on. One of the deals is Sunday is the Shloshim of October 7th and the slaughter in the strip, the kibbutzim surrounding Gaza. And there are all kinds of activities and marches and programs. And so with regret, we're going to be rescheduled. Last night, Joel said, we're going to reschedule the next couple. Fine. But please do notice the meeting will not take place on Sunday, November 5th. And I'm not thrilled. Also on November 5th, please remember, daylight savings ends. And I know that it's happening because there are all kinds of articles about seasonal affective disorder striking as people are shoved into darkness. Okay. I want to mention as well, calendar, Kristallnacht is November 9th and 10th. Please, we remember Kristallnacht each and every year. And it is November 9th and 10th. We won't be meeting on those dates, but we're there. And I mentioned that November 5th is Shloshim. Jewish tradition often has, after the funeral, 30 days after the death, there is a memorial observance. I've noticed Shloshim means 30. I've noticed this most often with scholars. When a scholar passes away, 30 days afterwards, they gather for a teaching. And you know, that's great. One of the things that's happening with the Shloshim, people are asking, groups are asking, Sunday and Monday, wear blue and white something. Okay, Sunday and Monday, wear blue and white something. And I leave that up to you. That's going to be a sign of unity. Cindy, what do you have in terms of program?
Nothing directly with sisterhood, but at Risa's encouragement, Rabbi Nanas has arranged for a bus to comfortably take you to the Reagan Library to see the Auschwitz exhibit. It's on the 14th. You can make a reservation through the Wilshire Weekly, but Risa's the one who worked with Rabbi Nanas to get this going, and it's supposed to be a really lovely, comfortable bus. It'll be a nice time to be with your Wilshire brothers and sisters and see a wonderful exhibit.
Yeah. So that's great. I'll be on the bus.
How much does that cost? $44?
Yeah, that's the bus is 15, and then the ticket to the library.
Okay.
I just have to know.
I have a question for Cindy. Cindy, if we already paid, that does include the bus, does it not?
It depends. You had two options. You could just pay for your ticket or pay for the ticket in the bus. If you have a problem, contact Hannah.
I paid for both.
Help you.
So are we
Now,
meeting
where
at
do
the?
we give the money, dear?
Let's hold on that. Let's
Okay.
put the stuff in the bulletin.
Okay.
And that's good. Joseph, you're going to make it impossible for me to teach that beautiful face staring at me. He's gorgeous, or she. But maybe his name. I can't.
It's a he. It's Joseph Jr.
Joseph Jr.
Oh, what a cute baby. Who does that belong to?
See.
Try not to be
adorable.
distracted. Okay. Here is Stanley not being distracted by Joseph Jr. Okay.
Cute baby.
Oh my goodness. What a shame.
Okay. We're going to be doing something a little bit different today. I actually have two areas that I want to study. One is really serious and current, and the other is just interesting and simple. I'm going to start off with the current, and it's going to be, we're in Vayera. We are in, let's see, here we go, page 125 in the Plout. We are in Genesis 18, beginning with verse 20. Okay, so that's where we will find ourselves. If someone has the women's commentary, you can give us the page on that too. Okay.
Page 90.
Page 90 in the commentary. Fine.
Excuse me.
God then said, the outcry in Sodom and Gomorrah, how great it is, and their crime, how grave it is. The Hebrew is kaved. It's very heavy. Let me go down and determine whether they are wreaking havoc in equal measure to the shrieking that is coming in to me. If not, I will know. I think that's a pretty funny, that sentence is a pretty funny sentence. And we're allowed to laugh at the Torah or with the Torah or whatever. God said, I hear this great outcry coming from Sodom and Gomorrah. I've got to go down there and check whether the crimes that are being committed are equal to the screaming that I'm hearing. And that's kind of like, we don't have God in total control of the situation. Hi, Sukasa. That God says, all I'm getting is this noise from Sodom and Gomorrah. I got to go down and check it out. Okay? It's an attitude about what God is doing at this point. The men, these angels who were visiting with Abram and Sarah, turned away, and Abraham remained standing before God. And I need an Abraham voice. Is anyone willing to be Abraham? Just, to do reading. Do we have an Abraham English reader? Please, come on, folks. Raise your hand. If not, I'll have to do it, which is silly. Okay, Donna. So you'll be Abraham. Now, this may be more attractive to you. Does somebody here want to be God? You may find that part more. Oh, Natalie, why don't you do God to Donna's Abraham? And that'll be a family thing. Okay, I'm going to give the cues. The Eternal One, God then said, God,
You're muted.
God is slow on the uptake. Okay. Are you with us? Natalie, are you unmuted?
You are. I'm on page 22.
You're now on verse 20, page 125. And God then.
Oh, I moved. I'm sorry. I'm in what you said first. I will get there. 1, 2, 3. Wait a minute.
Okay.
You're in verse 20 now, and which? And
page 125, verse 20.
25, verse 20. Is that what you just said?
Verse 120, page 125.
No. I'm in the other book. I need to
page 90 in the women's commentary.
No. I'm so sorry. You were on 19 before. You were on 1820 before. That's where I was before.
We are in chapter
18, verse 20. Chapter 18, verse 20.
You enunciate nicely.
18, verse 20. Here we go. The men set out. Is that the
No?
Okay. Now,
that's
verse
16.
20. I'm going to read
19. Wait a minute. And this is 21. Which is 20? Here. Then the Lord said.
Okay.
Right? The outrage of Sodom and Gomorrah is so great, and their sin so grave. I will hold it. I will go down to see whether they have acted altogether according to the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will take note.
The men now turned away and went toward Sodom, while Abraham remained standing before the Eternal. Abraham then came forward and said,
Will you indeed sweep away the innocent along with the wicked? Suppose there are 50 innocent in the city. Will you indeed sweep away the place and not spare it for the sake of the 50 innocent who are in its midst? Far be it from you to do such a thing, killing innocent and wicked alike, so that the innocent and the wicked suffer the same fate. Far be it from you. Must not the judge of all the earth do justly?
the Eternal One, God.
And the Lord answered, if I find within the city of Sodom 50 innocent ones, I will give the whole place for their sake.
Abraham spoke.
Look now, let me undertake to speak up to my Lord, though I am but dust and ashes. What if the 50 innocent are 5 short? Will you destroy the whole city because of 5?
God answered.
And he answered, I will not destroy if I find 45 there. But
once more, Abraham spoke up.
What if 40 are found there?
And God answered.
He answered him and said, what if 40 should be found there? And he answered, I will not do it for the sake of 40. And he said,
okay, then Abraham said,
do not be angry, my Lord, and let me speak. What if 30 are found there? What if 30 are found there?
And he answered, I will not do it if I find 30.
And Abraham said,
look now, let me undertake to speak up before my Lord. What if 20 are found there?
God said.
He answered, I will not destroy for the sake of 20.
Then Abraham said,
let not my Lord be angry, and let me speak up one last time. What if 10 are found there?
And God
he
said,
answered, I will not destroy for the sake of the 10.
Then speaking to Abraham, God departed, and Abraham returned to his place. Very nicely done as a dialogue. We can go take that show on the road. Okay, now there are so many things here. So many things. Starting with verse 20. Sodom and Gomorrah, we know, are paradigmatic places for the worst places on earth. You know that, for example, the term sodomite, Sodomite, is derived from Sodom. And sodomy, which I first learned about in the play Hair, sodomy, fellatio. Remember that one? Or I'm dating everybody here. I'm sorry.
No, I don't remember that one.
I had to go to the dictionary to figure out what was being. I was very innocent.
Right.
So Sodom, really more than Gomorrah, Sodom became a place identified with sexual depravity. And Gomorrah, in recent years, there have been a couple of books, plays written using the term Gomorrah. It's still very much in play. Ray Kassaran.
Thank you. It took me a moment to unmute there. There is so much that is essential, important, and invigorating about this section. Certainly, it will not be lost on us. This may even be where you're headed next about current events and the relevance here. But I have a question about one thing that is fresh in front of my eyes that I never even thought of before. In this translation, I have women's commentary today. It ends, Abraham returned to his place, Abraham shel lemukomo. And I will ask a Hebrew speaker to tell us about lemukomo, because Abraham returned to his place. I always just zipped over that when I've seen this before. And that seems really actually possibly may be very defining about Abraham's place, both literally and place in living this earthly life, and our place as the children of Abraham. What is our place, do we think, when our constant life is living our mission on this earth and in constant negotiation with our understanding of God? So that's my question in my head, but I also want a Hebrew speaker to tell me about Limukamo.
Okay, this makes it very hard for me. That's a brilliant question. That's very good. That's a very good question, right? Because not infrequently, using phrases like Ba'asher Hu Sham or Shavlim Komo, there are ways of saying, walked off stage, Shavlim Komo. But on the other hand, you want it to be a metaphor. Abraham bulks up, challenges God, does the work, survives, and then kind of like withdraws. Oops, what did I just do? I challenged God directly and returned to his status as a mere human being. So you got a bunch of things that are going on, and all of them are good. You allow me to remember the person who for more than a decade was my rabbi, David Hartman. David Hartman had an influence on me which I cannot even begin and wouldn't try to begin to describe here. He opened up Jewish theology and Jewish living and Jewish integrity in a way which was astonishing. And he was the founder of the Shalom Hartman Institute, named for his father, Shalom Hartman. And now his son, Daniel, is the director of the Shalom Hartman Institute, which is one of the great adult education operations, plus much more than that, in the Jewish world. David Hartman looked at verse 18. Chapter 18, what we're talking about, and said, this is one of the most important chapter statements about theology in the whole Torah. Whoa! I mean, that's a big statement. What about the 10 Commandments? What about all that? Hartman said, in the old model, God determines, we receive. God is active, we are passive. God structures, we suffer in a passive sense. But in chapter 18 of the book of Genesis, you have God operating, these are Hartman's words, in covenantal mode. In covenantal mode, God needs to operate with Abraham. And God gives Abraham the space to operate, and Abraham does operate. God is not free under covenantal mode to do whatever pleases God. God is in a covenantal relationship with the Jewish people, and that requires dialogue. And that's what we see in this Sedra. So, on the one hand, it could be a throwaway. They had a kibbutz. No. Where else do you really find God involved in working through with a human being what needs to happen in the world? And for Hartman, that's where Jews are today. We are God arguers. We confront God and we expect God to respond, because that's what covenant involves. So thank you, Ray, for raising that. And Bim Komo or Lim Komo to his place very happily, Ray, could be construed both ways, to his physical location or to his status.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's helpful information.
So I actually appreciate you handing me, with a pitching a softball. I wanted to deliver the Hartman statement, and you gave it to me.
Excellent.
So thank you very much. I see Rebecca, I see Steve.
Thank you, Ray, because that was enlightening, the question that you asked. And I want to add that it seems to me that in order to be able to speak to God or interface with God, you have to be in an elevated state of consciousness. And for Abraham to then return to his place, he's coming back to a more mortal sense of being, which makes sense in regards to his binding of his son and why he did not question that sacrifice, because he was no longer in that elevated space of consciousness.
That's terrific. Absolutely terrific. If Abraham is going to in any way and feel that he is encountering, speaking to, dialoguing with God, it is an elevated state of consciousness. Call it meditation, call it anything else you want. It's a spiritual achievement, but one doesn't live in that status. One comes back out of that status, returning to his place could mean that. So yes, thank you, Steve.
I think it also demonstrates God is still the ultimate authority, because Moses, in a way, challenges God when he strikes the rock, but it's Moses trying to make the decision and binding God, as opposed to questioning God and trying to move his decision.
Yeah, I mean, not even under the most liberal version of covenantal theology does God end up exactly even with people. God, Steve, God is God. I mean, he's got to have a few things going for him. So yeah, it is a dialogue, but you're right. It's not exactly a dialogue among equal, but they are equally bound by the brute, by the covenant. Thank you for that. Okay, I see Howard and then I see Risa.
Robert Alter's footnote on this particular "and Abraham returned to his place" is somewhat similar. He says the report of a character's returning to his place or home is a formal convention for marking the end of an episode in biblical narrative, but this minimal indication has a thematic implication here. The contrast between Abraham's place in the nomadic, uncorrupted existence in the land of promise and Lot's location in one of the doomed cities of the plain.
Okay, I mean, yes, one would never argue with Robert Alter. I mean, you know, Robert Alter be good. There's a lot of conversation, Howard, about the moral stature of Lot. There is a lot of question about that, and many books. I'm not going to do that today, but one is not going to assume. Lot chose to live in Sodom, okay? So, you know, if you want to live in that neighborhood, I'm going to give you a for instance. The mention was made at the end of the Sedra, we're dealing with the Akedah, right? We know that. At the end of the Sedra, we're dealing with the Akedah. Fine. Question, what happened to Abraham that when God said, go slaughter your kid, Abraham basically said, okay. What happened? What happened to this Abraham? And some of the rabbis offer this suggestion, Howard. After the incident with Gerar, the king of Gerar, which is the first part of our Sedra, when the king of Gerar looks at a 90-year-old woman and is sexually attracted. And by the way, let it be clear, I will be attracted to 90-year-old women and believe in that. Risa, you're not even responding. Okay, now, so after that, the rabbis note that Abraham lived in that area in what was then called a Philistine zone. He was living with those people. And then God says, slaughter your son. And Abraham was willing to go with it. And the rabbis connect those two things. He lived in a lousy neighborhood for 10 years. And when God made what in other circumstances would have been an outrageous demand, Abraham, affected by the people among whom he lived, went along with it. That's a story, Howard, okay?
No.
Where you live can shape how you respond. Did Lot come into Sodom being less than a highly moral person, or did his living in Sodom do that to him? And that's a debate. That's a question. But thank you. Thank you for raising that. Risa.
In the story of Noah, we have God telling Noah what he's doing and why he's doing it. Here we have Vayomer, and we don't know to whom. So perhaps God is talking to himself and preparing himself for what he's going to do. And Noah doesn't negotiate because he knows what's going on. Where do we know that Abraham knows what's going on?
Well, when Abraham argues with God, he's trying to pull God down from the tree. Don't do it for 50, for 40, for 30, for 20, for 10. So Abraham is arguing for a position.
Right, but it says in 20, it says Vayomer.
Yes, it says
me.
And God said, look, I don't want to upset you. Maybe God was chatting with the angels. That is possible here. Or with the heavenly cohorts that Genesis believes in. So okay, so you could say that God was certainly speaking to himself, maybe I should go down and check. God to God, or God to the Malachei Hasharet, whatever, the angels. Hey, guys, excuse me, people. No, they're not people. They're not guys. Hey, angels, I think I'm going to go check this out. And all those are possible, Reese. All of those are possible. Okay.
Rabbi, may I say something along that line?
To the point.
Okay, about the angels, I will, to the point. I talk to them all the time. I know if they weren't around me, I'd be dead.
Okay, I appreciate that, and you're not the only one. Okay, I see Brad, yes.
I found Ray's question so interesting about the place. And, I look back and it's very clear in Genesis 18:16. Yeah, I'm looking very literally that they're in a place where they're looking down upon Sodom and Gomorrah. And at the end of this, in Genesis 19, when Sodom and Gomorrah has been destroyed, it says, next morning, Abraham hurried to the place where he had stood before the Lord, and looking down upon Sodom and Gomorrah and all the land of the plain, and saw the smoke of the land rising like the smoke of a kiln. So this particular place, the specifics of this place, that they're in an elevated location, looking down upon the cities of the plain. How are we to that specificity? To what purpose is that? And how do you interpret that? Looking down upon the cities of the plain.
You know, you people are aware that I really love working together with you in partnership studying Torah. And I really do. And you have found, Brad, a repeat of the word makom, and you made the makom connection. Very rabbinic. Very, very rabbinic. And you get 3 extra stars for that connection. And I love it because I hadn't picked up on that. Now the question is this a physical place? We had Rebecca earlier talking about an elevated state of being, right? And that's a place. You could be in an elevated state of being, that's a place, and then you can leave that place. And you're saying, the text says, there is a physical location where Abraham went to look down at the cities of the plain and to make judgment, okay, or whatever else he was going to do. Let's see, now let's pause for a second. Where else can we find having to go to a place to look? I remember that when Moses was at Mount Sinai and the people were doing the golden calf stuff, Moses heard the noise and all that and was aware, looking down on them, that things were amiss. Are there other places, Tamara, maybe you can help me, other places where looking down, where they go to a physical place to do a moral evaluation? It's just a great point.
I can't think of a moral evaluation, but of course, when God takes Moses to the top of the mountain to see the land, we have that image of looking down. There might be others, but I don't know that up and down do often have significance. Like you always go up to Jerusalem, even though Jerusalem is not the highest place. And anytime you leave Jerusalem, it's a down. So it's used that way in many places. But I'm not sure here, because here it's more, there was a place when Abraham met the angels, and then they start walking off. And he joins them. That's what we read in 16. He went with them. So he left his home, his tent, and he followed them. And now he's going back to his tent. But I love the moral significance as well.
Yeah, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. I would love permission to move forward a little bit on the. I didn't want you to enjoy this so much. Howard?
I hate to slow things down, but I know the English says in the Plout it says look down, but in Hebrew, does it say? I think it says.
Okay, what verse is on, please?
Yeah. In English, I'm sorry. In English, I think in the Plout translation it says looks down.
Where?
In the Hebrew, is that what it says? Because it says V'yashkifu al panei Sodom. Does that mean look down, or does it mean look out?
First, give me a verse number.
16.
16?
Yeah.
Okay. And then when we gazed down, V'yakumu misham anashim v'yashkifu al pnei Sodom v'Avram holech imam l'shalcham.
Right.
V'yashkifu. By the way, Yashkifu is more than looked. And you're asking an interesting question. Vayashkifu has the sense of looks intensely, looks broadly, looks whatever. It's more than just open one's eyes and sees. Vayashkifu meant he took a really good look.
In other words, gazed or looked out.
Yeah, okay.
And in 1928?
Okay, let me just say that in 16, down is not there. V'yakumu misham anashim, and the angel people got up, vayashkifu, and they looked al pnei Sodom and Gomorrah. They looked. Looking down is not in the Hebrew. Okay?
And in 1928?
In 1928. Okay, you're making me
Same thing, same word.
very uncomfortable. 1928. There we go.
Yashkef.
Okay, same word. Oh, we have good studying here. Verse 28, vayashkef, which is the same root as vayashkifu, same word. And he gazed, and it doesn't say down. He gazed. It's literary to say he looked down. He was on a higher place looking down into the valley where the towns were.
But that's not what it
down
says.
is not in the Hebrew.
Right.
But looking at the plains, if you're looking at the plains, you're obviously in an elevated location.
Exactly. It's
No,
okay.
he's not looking at the plains, he's looking at the face.
Okay, you're doing beautifully. I love the fact Vayashkef showed up again. That to me is a fun discovery for me. Vayashkifu, Vayashkef is a sense of looking, but not just, oh, I'm looking at the ocean. Fine. That's not Vayashkef. Vayashkef is taking a serious look at what's going on.
Mhm.
You people are doing beautifully. We have there was around 20 years ago a group of people who were Torah students. I was going to say just like you, but no one's like you. And they wrote a book. They wrote a book of all their Torah commentaries. Someone had been taking notes, and they published a book, and all of that stuff was in print. Okay, may I say that I have a lot to do here, and I'd like to move on, even though that's not a rule. So the rabbis want to know, and this is where we're turning. Abraham gets involved in this dialogue with God if they're 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. And some people unkindly say, are we dealing with Abraham and God, or are we in the Jerusalem shuk negotiating over a tchotchke? Because that's how you do it. In the Jerusalem market of today, you're allowed to go into any of these little stores, these little shops, and say, oh, this is nice, this is nice. But if you dare say, how much is this? You are now in a formal negotiating conversation. And to walk away without offering a counter price is rude.
Oh, wow.
So if the shopmaker says, whatever, 30 shekel, oh my God, that's terrible, and you walk out, you will have insulted the shopkeeper. If you say 30 shekel, come on, it's worth 10. Okay. So then you are respecting the process. You have to be very careful. I have seen shopkeepers run after people and yell, say something, don't walk away from me. Okay. In any event, they had this conversation. The rabbis, and this I wanted to get to today. What were the sins of Sodom and Gomorrah? And you know that kind of a question allows the person answering to speak of their values, not just what they think was actually happening. So when the rabbis try to answer their own question, what was the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah? The rabbis answer by describing what they consider to be horrible sins. Okay? If you push at them, it doesn't mean that the rabbis totally believe that what they're saying was exactly what was going on. But they're reaching into their own experiences and offering what they consider to be horrible sins. Is that point clear? I think it's really important because this is some of the answers the rabbis give.
Rabbi, may I say something, please?
No, please.
Okay, all right, later.
No, please.
Later.
The rabbis offered some of the following. Number one, the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah, social inequity.
I knew it.
And you know, maybe that doesn't quite sound like what they were involved in the ancient Middle East. And it certainly doesn't sound like the sexual crimes that have always been ascribed to Sodom and Gomorrah. But the rabbis in the Middle Ages who answered their own question used the occasion to point out what they felt in their day was terrible. Answer number one, what was wrong in Sodom and Gomorrah is that there were the people who had and the people who didn't have. And the rabbis specify social inequity comes in two packages. One is active social inequity, when I go and create a situation and impose it upon a population. I'm going to make the rich, like I'm going to cut out all the IRS investigators and let the rich keep their money and have only the poor pay taxes. That's active social inequity. But there is also passive social inequity in which people say, I know this is wrong, but I got other things to do. I'm going to let it go. And for the rabbis who answered the question, what did Sodom and Gomorrah do? They're equally bad. Next, there were people in Sodom and Gomorrah who actively felt that feeding the poor was not a communal obligation. I loved finding these comments because they sound contemporary, right? Can it really be that some people believe that we don't have an obligation to actively engage in feeding the poor? And the answer is yeah.
Terrible.
The answer is yeah. There are actual people who believed then and today that feeding the poor is not a communal obligation. Next.
Oh, that's so wrong.
Next is hospitality. This was big, and this is mentioned a lot in the study of Sodom and Gomorrah. Abraham had his tent open in 4 directions so that any stranger coming by would be welcome. Where do we find a replica of Abraham's tent in Jewish life?
Sukkah?
Asa.
Hoppah.
Sukkah. Sukkah.
A chuppah. So that the chuppah,
God, a sukkah also?
Yeah, Sukkot.
I can't hear.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Don't do it. You look at the chuppah and it's wide open on all four sides. Abraham's tent, open to strangers. And Sarah and Abraham run out and make a meat and milk meal for the strangers, which is a whole separate question for another year. There were people in Sodom who didn't believe that hospitality is a mitzvah. I remember, Rita, you remember, we would go to services Friday evening at Kol HaNeshama in Jerusalem. And near the end of services, the rabbi would check, are there people here who don't have Shabbos dinner? And are there people here who are willing to invite them in?
Oh.
Okay, that's nice. That's mitzvah. That's awesome. And by the way, almost every Friday evening there was 1, 2, 3. We would pick up people and drag them to our house. No one who was making Friday evening dinner before coming to services would make just enough for the two. You made enough because you could be ending up with 2 or 3 other people picked up at service. Hospitality. Tomorrow, did you have your hand up? No? Okay. So hospitality is a Jewish value. We laugh about the sukkah. Sukkahs don't work if you don't have strangers invited to come in. That's part of what they're all about. Okay, and the last comment that the rabbis offered as the crime of Sodom and Gomorrah, blindness to the needs of others. It sounds like a contemporary social justice sermon, but it's not contemporary, it's Middle Ages. And they're reading back into the Abrahamic period, values which were Jewish then, and folks, they're Jewish now. And I haven't said anything, but wouldn't it be great if we could instigate a custom that at the end of services, if you don't have a Shabbos dinner to go to, let us know and we'll try to place you tonight. Okay, I'm an idealist, but boy, we loved it in Jerusalem. We loved it. Okay, now that we're moving to the very end, and this has been, I have this whole other section which we're not going to get to. Abraham argues with God and tries to say, you can't do this. And Abraham says to God, will you kill the righteous along with the wicked? And somebody at the beginning of this hour predicted where I was headed. Yeah. The killing of the innocent along with the killing of the wicked. And it's right here in our text. Abraham is saying, if there are 50 good people in Sodom and Gomorrah, you're going to kill them too? No, not at 50. not if 40, not if 30, not if 20, not if 10. By the way, God breaks off at 10. He was afraid Abraham was going to come back with 0, and then that's not an acceptable number. But Abraham is saying, using contemporary language, God, you're proposing an act which involves collateral damage. That's the language we use today. Innocence dying along with the wicked who deserve to die. There's another problem that the rabbis raise in this context that we think about today too. We see Abraham fighting for justice for the good. What about justice for the bad? As a question, not as an answer. Does God have an obligation to extend justice to the wicked? Abraham says you have to show justice to the righteous.
I agree with Abraham.
Am I wrong at looking at this text and finding myself twisted about what's going on?
No, Rabbi, you're right.
Okay. Steve Miller?
I think there's a big difference here, and that is, in the case of Sodom and Gomorrah, the rest of the world, and even God's existence, were not threatened. Collateral damage, it's not really collateral damage, and God could kill them one by one. He doesn't kill every sinner ever. And there's, to compare that to what's going on now, not that any innocent person should die, but there's absolutely no comparison between just killing people because they're evil and killing people because they are a threat to you, and what collateral damage may come from that. So I think it's a false equivalency.
Okay. By the way, the slaughtering of Sodom and Gomorrah was not a discrete one by one.
Right. I know, that's my point.
It was, fire and sulfur and all that good stuff. They kind of incinerated the mass.
Right. And God could have done it one by one. I mean, he's an all powerful. If he can do it to all, he could have cherry picked.
Okay. But that didn't happen here. It didn't. I find myself in a position in which I'm like one of those so-called patients on the TV ads, manic depressive. Am I manic? Am I depressive? Are you both? You take this medication. This medication is only for the depressive part. I want bloody revenge, whatever it takes.
Rabbi, may I say something, please?
No.
I agree with you on
No,
that.
the word no.
Oh,
no.
No. I love you.
The problem of not being able to get the wicked because they live in the midst of the righteous or the non-wicked convinces me that Israel has to go to wipe out the wicked. And that if the good or non-wicked who live around them are killed, that's a terrible price, but it's a price that has to be paid. That's one half of me. And the other half of me understands that most people are not involved in their political world, and they just put their heads down and try to live for the day. They're not actively complicit. Why should they suffer? And the fact is, that question is only going to be answered by an application of power. It's never going to be philosophically resolved. Israel is going to pound away to make certain that Hamas never again, ever, will be able to threaten Israel.
That's a good thing.
So that you're not really having the question answered. The question is being taken care of. I'm sorry to share. I will not ask Israel to do a ceasefire. I will support asking Israel to hold off. What do they call that? Not a ceasefire, but
pause. Pause.
Humanitarian pause.
Yes, thank you, Cindy.
I can see a 3-day humanitarian pause. And when I'm done with that, I don't see my morality as any better than anybody else's, because the conclusion is horrible. It's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to take a couple of people who have not spoken and then end. Sukasa?
Back to the Torah portion. Abraham negotiates with God, and God lets him have his way a little bit. And then he says, okay, I'm done with you. And he destroys the city anyway. How can you explain this?
God promises that if there are 10 righteous, he won't destroy. And so we have to assume, we have a right to assume that God checked it out and there were not 10 righteous. I mean, that's the way the rabbis will read the text.
You know, that in general comment, it's the rabbis just sort of, we have the Torah and it's written as it's written. And then the rabbis come along and they have to explain it. And they kind of create stories that explain it to put things in a favorable light. It doesn't say that in the Torah, but that's what the rabbis do to make the Torah work, if you will.
I totally agree with your language. To make the Torah work. We do that a lot. And in some cases, take the written meaning of Torah and change it to something else. Yes. Do we have anyone else? Okay. I see Doris. I don't hear you, Doris.
I'm sorry. I'm not for the pause until all the hostages are released. When that happens, I think they can make that deal. But otherwise, no, I don't think so. I'm not for that. I feel bad for the Palestinian people who are being hurt as a result of all of this. But I'm just for what was done to Israel. I can't forgive these people no matter what.
and I'm not going to disagree with you, but again, to connect with the Sedra, God destroys Sodom and Gomorrah. And with the assumption that there were not 10 worthy people. And every time I would read that, I would call that into question. Really? In 2 cities, there weren't 10 worthy people? I am very uncomfortable with this portion of the Torah. And I am very unhappy that it connects into today's world directly. Directly. Anyone else who has not spoken, and then we're going to add, we're going to end and say, okay, Harv, Mara, Harv, whoever.
So I was reading this morning one of the Hasidic masters on this Torah portion, and the statement was made in it that the difference between God and people is that God can be both angry and compassionate at the same time, can hold two opposite feelings, whereas people are only capable of either being angry or having joy. And it seems to me that this Torah portion and these times challenge us to try to be more like God.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you. One last shot. Anyone? Okay, you started us, you close us. Rebecca, go ahead.
For me, it's a question: are you a product of your heredity or your environment? So if these Gazan children were not recruited into these terrorist groups, would these children still be active terrorists if they were taken out of that environment?
All right, I'm going to end here because I got into a violent verbal fight this week. Yes, you're looking at one who is the personification of calm. Got into I was walking during the conversation with my health aide, with Gilroy, and he looked at me like I had been transformed into someone he had never met. Someone I know very well and have worked with for decades, but do not call a friend, attended the Republican Jewish Conference in Nevada, Las Vegas, this week. He was interviewed under the Jewish News Service. That's a real thing. The Jewish News Service is a very conservative, very real media thing. And in it, this gentleman said, it's very sad when you're seeing children killed, but they're all just small jihadists. I screamed. One of the things that the Torah has God saying about children, when talking about the children of the Ammonites or the Moabites or whatever ites, and people are saying, you should kill them all now because they're going to grow up to be adult Moabites and attack us. And the response that the rabbis give to God is we only have the right to deal with people as they are in this moment. And you have no right to say they're going to grow up to be jihadists. Well, God doesn't say jihadists. They're going to grow up to be adult murderers of the Jewish people. We have raised incredible moral issues today. And I thank you for creating a space within which it is safe to do that. You're amazing. You're amazing. I now am going to read the names of those who have passed away during the past month. I don't have a list out of Israel, but certainly there are many names who would be added to this list. Melvin Demadoff, Marvin Gerstein, Vernon Bob Grunstrom, Bob Harris, Michael Harris, Virginia Ginny, Barrett Hirsch, Arthur Keith, Mira Clapper, Jerry Rabin, Andy Raymond, Jackie Raymond, Ilana Tatarsky, Ronan, Rick Stewart, Fred Zimmerman. And those the anniversaries of whose deaths have occurred during the past week: Robert Adler, Joel Amarillo, Rose Arnold, Matt Barish, Milton Eli Barron, Rose Baruch, Jerome Irwin Blatt, Benjamin Block, Sarah Blum, Esther Brandt, Ruth Braunstein, Stephen David Brody, Gertrude Bubar, Harry Buckberg, Gil Cates, Ruth Shannon, Gadian Cohn, Herbert Danaman, Rena Eliashar, Harry Ensler, Ray Friedman, Melvin Gantman, Rebecca Gartzman, Ruth Moskowitz Gershon, Irving Gerstein, Latifa Gadushi, Howard Goldfeder, Gunther Goldschmidt, Bernard Good, Ruth Good, Lillian Gordon, Ira Gottfried, Anthony Greenberg, Jesse Gross, Rolla Gumpert, Jesse Hartstein, Marion Hirsch, Carlisle Immerman, Bert Jarko, Jack Jonah, Hinda Kalkstein, Fred Callett, Suzanne Callett, Elliot Caption, Harry Kaplan, Hortense Kaufman, Sarah Porton Keith, Verona Kelman, Maria Kornhauser, Beverly Ginsburg Landy, Ellis Lansbaum, David Keene Levitt, Phyllis Levin, Francis Levy, Shirley Lindy, Harry Lindman, Sidney Gary Morantz, Robert Craig Markowitz, Rose Mayo, David Migdal, Beverly Mitchell, Jack Moyer, Claire Mullen, Frida Ontken, David Ort, Susan Peckel, Samuel Pensick, Joseph Pitson, Adele Pollock, Betsy Plevin, Ari Raven, Rose Reed, Louise Rhodes, Mildred Rothstein, Sally Rofe, Helen Rose, Irving Rosen, Benjamin Rosenbaum, Erwin Rosenblum, Harry Rosenwald, Mildred Roth, Nathan Sachs, James Schroeder, Kate Schwartzman Shapiro, Nathan Sills, Lee Allen Simon, Gene Starr, Marcella Stillerman, Alfred Strasburger Jr., Walker Strauss Jr., Marvin Sussman, Richard Tallman, Rose Tapper, Mina Turkian, Leanne Trebach, May Orr, Dixon Walney, Patricia Weiner, Morris Weinstein, Tova Wanyarts, Augusta Zipperman, Michelle Zuckerman. If there are other names to be mentioned now, I ask that you speak those names aloud or in your hearts. We bear in mind the names of all of those who died in defense of the United States, all of those who died in defense of the state of Israel, all of those who died through senseless acts of murder and pogrom, all of those I have no one who will be there to say Kaddish for them. We bind them all in our hearts. And we say, Yitkadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, Bialma Divra Chirute, Biamlich Malchute, B'chayechon Uvyomechon, Uvachaye Dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah Barach, Yomei Almaya, Yitbarach, Yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitramam, V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shmei D'Kudisha Barichun, Leila Min Kol Birchata V'shirata, Ushbachata V'nechamata, V'amivam V'alma, V'imru Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabbah Min Shemaya, V'chayim Aleinu, O Yisrael, V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom, Ramav, Oseh Shalom. Aleinu Yalkut, V'imru Amen. I like very much that at the end of services now, we are singing Hatikva instead of Oseh Shalom, at least for the time being. May God bring peace, comfort, security to the people of Israel. May God help bring an end to the conflict, which will be an end out of which a threat to Israel's survival will have been banished from the earth. May God help us watch out for the innocent and the kids. May God help us build a world within which battles for survival no longer need to be fought. Have a wonderful Shabbat, everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you for today. Very important day. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
What a group we have, huh? Okay.